If you've been dating after 50 and it feels like nothing is working, you're swiping, you're going on dates, maybe you've even been in a relationship or two since your divorce, but something keeps going wrong. I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes because I think I know exactly what the problem is. And I'll warn you up front, it's probably not what you think. The dating advice most people over 50 are following, the advice that's everywhere online, in books, from well-meaning friends, is built for a completely different season of life. It was designed for people in their 20s and 30s who are dating for the first time and who have all the time in the world to figure things out the hard way. That's not you. And the approach you need is fundamentally different. Here's what I hear from people who reach out to me. They say things like, I've done the work on myself. I know who I am. I know what I want. So why does this keep not working? Or, I was in a long marriage. I thought I knew how relationships worked, but dating now feels like I landed on a different planet. Or maybe this one, and this is one that really sticks with me. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I'm just too old for this. Maybe love after 50 just isn't realistic. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to hear me say this clearly. You're not too old, you're not broken, and the fact that it hasn't worked yet is not evidence that it won't. What it is evidence of is that you've been using the wrong approach for the season of life that you're actually in. So, what do I mean when I say everything you've been told is backward? Most dating advice tells you to lead with attraction, to get the chemistry going, see how things feel, let it develop naturally. And then, somewhere down the road, when you're emotionally invested, you start finding out whether this person is actually a fit for your life. That's dating forward. And for most people in their 20s, with decades ahead of them, that may be fine. They can afford to learn the hard way. But here's the problem. When you date forward after 50, you end up emotionally attached to someone before you know the things that actually matter. Before you know if your values align. Before you know if your vision for life actually matches. Before you've had the real conversations. And by the time you find out those things don't line up, you're already in it. Dating backward flips the sequence. You do the due diligence up front. You have the important conversations earlier. Not to interrogate someone on a first date, but to be intentional about what you're looking for and paying attention to whether this person fits that picture. It's not unromantic. It's actually deeply respectful of your time, of their time, and of what you both deserve. Let me give you 3 reasons why the standard dating playbook doesn't work after 50. The first one is the most important. You're not who you were at 30. That sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but most people are still dating like they are. At 30, you were still figuring out who you were. Your values were still forming. Your sense of what you needed in a partner was mostly theoretical. You could grow into a relationship or grow out of one and still have decades to course correct. At 50, 55, or 60, you know who you are. You've lived enough life to know what matters to you at the core level, your faith, your family, how you spend your time, the kind of home you want to come back to at the end of the day. That's not baggage. That's clarity. And clarity is actually your greatest asset in dating, if you know how to use it. The mistake most people make is treating their clarity like a liability. They soften their standards to seem less picky. They talk themselves out of deal breakers. They tell themselves to be open. But open to what? Open to repeating the same mistake that cost you a decade the first time? Your standards exist for a reason. Trust them. The second reason the standard advice fails you after 50 is that chemistry, that feeling of spark, of electricity, of this just feels right, is one of the most unreliable signals you can have. And we've all been taught to treat it like it's the main event. Here's what's actually happening when you feel that strong chemistry with someone. Your nervous system is responding to familiarity, not goodness, not compatibility, familiarity. And if your relationship history includes patterns that weren't healthy, which, if you're being honest, most of ours do, then strong chemistry early can actually be a warning sign, not a green flag. I'm not saying chemistry doesn't matter. It does. But it belongs in the passenger seat, not behind the wheel. What belongs behind the wheel is alignment. Do your values match? Do your visions for life point in the same direction? Can you actually build something together that works, not just feel something together that's exciting? When chemistry leads and compatibility follows, or never shows up at all, that's how you end up in another relationship that felt great at the start and fell apart in the middle. Dating backward means you check for alignment first and then let the chemistry develop in that context. That's actually more romantic that way because it's real. The third reason is the one nobody wants to say out loud, but I think it needs to be said. Time is the one thing you can't get back. Not in a morbid way, in a clarifying way. In your 20s and 30s, a 2-year relationship that didn't work out was a learning experience. You had plenty of runway. In your 50s and 60s, a 2-year relationship that doesn't work out, one you probably knew 6 months in wasn't right, but stayed anyway, is a significant cost. I don't mean that to sound harsh. I mean it as a reason to be more intentional, not less hopeful. The people I've seen find extraordinary love after 50, and I've seen it happen. I've watched it happen for people that I've worked with. They share one thing in common. They stopped leaving their love life to chance. They got intentional. They got clear on what they were actually looking for. And they started making decisions from that clarity instead of from hope and chemistry alone. That's not settling. That's not giving up on romance. That is the most loving thing that you can do for yourself and for the person who deserves to be chosen on purpose. I want to be clear about something. I'm not telling you this from a theoretical place. I've been single for 16 years, and for the first several of those years, I was doing it the same way everyone else does it. Leading with chemistry, hoping for the best, and wondering why the same patterns kept showing up. It wasn't until I got honest about what I was actually doing and what I actually needed that things started to make sense. That work became the foundation of everything I teach and eventually the book I wrote called Dating Backward. The methodology works, not because it's complicated, it's actually very simple, but because it puts the most important things first, instead of last. So here's where I want to leave you. If you're dating after 50 and something keeps feeling off, if you're doing everything right on the surface but not getting the results you're looking for, it might not be a you problem. It might be a sequence problem. It might be that you've been dating forward when you need to be dating backward. The place to start is getting clear on what you're actually looking for. Not a vague wish list, but a real framework to make intentional decisions before you're emotionally invested. I put together a free resource called the Must-Have and Deal Breaker Blueprint that walks you through exactly how to do that. It's the same foundation I use with every client I work with, and it'll change how you approach every date you go on from here. The link is in the description below. And if you'd rather skip ahead and just talk through where you are with me directly, I also offer a free discovery call. No pressure, no pitch, just a real conversation to get some clarity on what's getting in your way. That link is in the description too. And if this video hit close to home, hit subscribe. I've got a lot more coming that builds on exactly what we've talked about here today. And drop a comment below. I genuinely want to know, what's the hardest part of dating at this stage of life for you? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video.